So in 1962, the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine was given to Watson and Crick for the discovery of DNA. That event over 50 years ago changed the world of science. Today, we're looking for the next game-changing discovery to improve mankind's health and wellness. According to many experts, your next speaker, Harry Massey, has such a discovery, based on the integration of physics and biology. Many researchers base their findings on their scientific research of others. Harry's own 10-year struggle with chronic fatigue syndrome led to the discovery that he will share with you today, that enables people to have the tools they need to get well and stay well. Harry told me he hasn't done much public speaking, but I've asked him anyway to tell us the story of his own miraculous healing and how that discovery can help you with your patients and in your own life. You'll also notice that Harry has a heavy English accent, so the Beatles aren't invading again, so just so you know. So please pay close attention so you don't miss a word of what he's going to share with you. His title is Decoding the Human Body Field, the greatest discovery since DNA. Please welcome Harry Massey.
Does this work? Cool. And hopefully my English accent isn't too heavy. Well, firstly, my name is Harry Massey. If any of you have ever watched The Living Matrix, that was one of the films that we made, and then one of the other things we did is put together the company Ness Health. So today I'm going to tell you sort of about quite an incredible journey of how myself and this other scientist called Peter Fraser mapped out the human body field, which is probably one of the least known discoveries ever since Watson and Crick discovered DNA, and how we sort of went from that to create an overall total wellness system. Is that a bit echoey? A little bit echoey, cool. So it's about 18 years ago now, I'm 39, but when I was 21, I got struck down with having chronic fatigue syndrome, and it was extremely hard time. I had it for about, I think it was 7 or 8 years. I was totally bedridden for 5 of those years. I was on IV drips and tried pretty much everything you could think of. I sort of went through the normal English National Health Service for the first 2 or 3 years. Didn't really get anywhere with that. Then got into I met a nutritionist after that. Got into the ideas of nutrition. I did some fasting. I did a 3-week water fast, which was probably the most disastrous thing I've ever done. I went from 12.5 stone down to 8.25 stone. But one lovely thing about doing that is I passed 2 buckets of parasites, which was absolutely disgusting. But the bad part of it is I went home in a wheelchair from South Africa back to England, and it was after that I was bedridden for quite a period. And in all this sort of period, I think that took up about 4 or 5 or so years. But in that period, I was always trying to try something new. I was always reading books and going onto the internet, and the sort of little amount of energy and time I had each day to sort of really try and understand. Well, really, I was just trying to work out how on earth to get better. And I had this sort of strange. It was a bit of a strange idea, but because I was so stuck at home, like basically I couldn't really afford to go and see practitioners, or I'd been seeing a few practitioners, or I'd been begging my parents to sort of pay to take me to different people, and they would have to drive me and all that type of stuff. And we lived in some little rural village, and it was quite a hassle to drive us around. So I basically had this idea that it would be a much better solution if you could have some sort of system that would tell you what was wrong with you from the comfort of your own home, and then give you the information that you needed and all the tools that you needed to get yourself better again. And that's really where this whole journey started, and I really had absolutely no clue how to do that. I was obviously I was extremely sick. I didn't have any energy. I didn't actually have any social skills, and do I have any social skills? Yeah, barely. I do have an accent, so that's okay. Anyway, so it's sort of one of those completely impossible type things. But because I was in such a desperate state, I didn't think that there was any harm in trying to see if that was possible. So that basically started me on this journey of trying to work out how on earth you could do such a thing. And I think one of the most influential books that there's all sorts of parts of the story, but there's quite a famous doctor in England called Dr. Julian Kenyon, and I wasn't his patient because I couldn't afford to be. He had a junior doctor underneath him, and I was one of I was her patient, and I was having an IV, like an intravenous thing at the time. And I think Julian Kenyon was walking past, and I knew he knew something about energy medicine, and I just thought there was something in it, but I didn't know what. And I just sort of asked him, Julian, who are the most prominent energy medicine researchers? And I don't know what he thought, because he was, considerably older. I was like 25 and 26, and one of his sick patients in his place. And but anyway, he stopped. And he asked me why, and I said, well, I want to sort of collect this information and put it online and stuff like that. And anyway, so he was kind enough to give me half an hour of his time, and he ended up introducing me to this scientist called Professor Peter Fraser, who Julian and him and a Parisian physicist and another oncologist from London had basically been working on a cancer diagnostic machine for a number of years, and they actually successfully made this machine. And the reason Peter was so influential, such a key part of that team, is he basically worked out a methodology where he got 97% accuracy for diagnosing things at all late stages of cancer in any part of the body, through energy medicine, without any X-rays or anything like that. So that was pretty astounding. So he basically introduced me to the scientist from Australia. I rang him up, sort of said that I had this. Actually, I think I said I had this little idea at the time, and all he did at the time was he sent me back a paper on quantum biology, which made absolutely no sense, but I uploaded it to the web. And then another year and a half went past, and I read another sort of key influential book, which is called The Field by Lynn McTaggart. Has anyone read that? Lots, cool. So in that book, there's a key chapter which describes all of the Princeton University studies, and hopefully the next slide will work. This is the great thing of technology. Cool. Yeah, it works. Cool. Is anyone familiar with the pair studies? Basically, what was described in the book is this whole series of experiments between consciousness and different random events. And they were using like radioactive decay as a source of randomness. They were using pseudo-random numbers from computers. They were using ball bearings sort of falling down a thing and going here and there. And they were basically sort of putting people in a room, and they would connect the source of randomness to basically to a computer screen. And if it came out one way in the randomness, it would make a black square. If it came out another way, it would just make a white square. And they were just getting people to make the square on the TV screen black or white, i.e. they were trying to get people to influence the random events. And they did this blind, they did it in the present moment, they did it going forwards in the future, where they would get someone to predict it today, and then they would run the experiment in a week's time, in a month's time, in 6 months' time. They would do it in the past, where they'd already they recorded a whole source of random noise, or to taken a source around noise from 5 years ago, and then they would use that. And so they did it every which way you could possibly imagine it was over about a period of 25 years, thousands and thousands of experiments, and consistently over all of that time, they were basically able to get, and normally in statistics you should get an exact 50-50 line between a black and a white, but it was totally incredible that they found about 54% of the time they would accurately predict what was a black square or what was a white square. And in reading that was totally fascinating to me at the time, and I thought, well, maybe that's a way you could apply that to doing a health analysis. Like you could apply it to pulling information out of the body. And I told Peter that idea on the phone. This is like a year and a half later, and I rang him up again. And I sort of said to Peter, and I didn't really know why I was talking to him, to be honest, because he was in Australia, I was in England. Massive age difference. I was sort of this sort of sick kid really. But we did, for whatever reason, we sort of got together. And he liked that idea because he thought order could come from chaos, and that there are patterns behind everything, and obviously all the stuff out of the holographic universe and quantum physics, that everything really is interconnected. Anyway, so we wrote a computer, we wrote some code to see if we could repeat these experiments, where so what this is here is we literally just drew a grid on a piece of paper. We coloured some white, we coloured some black. We wrote a computer program that was based on randomness, and asked the computer program to fill out the squares that we just drew on this piece of paper over here. There's no webcams involved, there's no magic, no trickery, and it did it. It got it right. And statistically, it was 1 in 68 million chances that it should have done that, which at the time, literally, we both pretty much fell off our chair when that happened. And because we'd read about it from the pair studies, but you read stuff and you never sort of action it. But having actually actioned it and done the experiments, we were totally amazed. So from that thought, we thought, well, why don't we apply that to health? Could we also use that as a matching system, as a matching mechanism to have a look at what's going on in the body, which we went on to do. And I'll get into what that was a little bit later, because there's lots of lovely slides. So this is just a little bit of history of energy medicine, a different type of history than Bern just gave. And it's really as to why is this not here? Why is no one looking at the physics of biology? Why is no one really looking at that ultimate master control system? I think there's a lovely, it's on the next slide. There's a lovely quote by Albert St. Georgi. He says that life is too rapid and subtle to be explained by slow-moving chemical reactions and nerve impulses. No one's really studied energy medicine properly, and these sort of three pictures half indicate why. Back hundreds of years ago, our first sort of understandings of anatomy and physiology it's a bit of a joke really, but it was from cutting up dead bodies. Over the last 100 years, the rise of biochemistry and the rise of a microscope, and we've been looking at things that are very, very small, and we're very obsessed with what we can see. Like you can see it, and with genetics we understand genes very well because you can see them again. Yet when you're looking at the energy of the body, you can't see it. I think that is a significant. It's one of the significant reasons why we've had this huge rise in biochemistry, not much of a rise in energy medicine. Obviously, you can add in on top of that all of the all of the great, I'm sure, all of the sort of big pharmaceutical and profit reasons as well. Obviously, there's so much money and research has gone into that end. Obviously, it's very good at protecting its turf, and lots of these solutions, in effect, I'd say they're free, but they can be done very much more cost effectively, which is obviously anti that other model. But it is incredibly important. So it's a bit of a shame that we haven't researched so much into it. That slide we did. So I mean, at its absolute most basic level, like when we're looking at reality, I think it's always good to go back to Einstein. He had this very famous equation called E equals mc squared, which really is just saying that the energy is equivalent to matter. Because like if we have this bottle, we know it's energy, or this computer's energy, or this desk is energy, but it's not just energy. That energy actually has a structure, because if it didn't have a structure, it would just be chaotic, and we'd all be this sort of wave mush, really. So really, we can slightly rewrite that equation and say that really matter is information structured energy, or matter is information plus energy. Or if you like, when we're looking at a biological system, you could say that life is information plus energy. We're not just energy beings. We're energy with a very, very complex information system behind all of those different types of energy to form life. And it is a very, I mean, the information systems are at many, many different levels. I mean, you can go right down to the level of matter itself, and how a particular waveforms are formed and how that's structured. So you can go up just to say, well, how is thought controlling motion and all those other types of things. I mean, there's many different levels of information and energy in the body, but overall you could broadly say that life is just two things: it's information and energy. Let's see if I slide back on here. Cool. So when we're looking at that in our terms, there's really just two ways, in a way, how you correct health. So if you're trying to make somebody totally well, totally healthy, if we can optimize all the different energy sources in the body, and we'll get to talk about those in a minute, that's going to be a great thing. If you can correct the information in the body, or the information that controls that energy, then that's going to be a good thing. So, and there's another nice little statement that, the body is the most miraculous doctor if you give it the energy and information it needs to heal itself. I mean, I'm a great proponent. I think Bach joked at the beginning about like healing devices don't do anything. In a way, I'd agree with that about every type of therapy that you could ever mention. I mean, it's the body. Like it's the body that heals itself. It's just everything else is really just a way of stimulating it or helping it. The way I see it, if you can help the body, if you can give the body the optimal sources of energy, and you can help correct its information, it basically will heal itself, and that's really all we're trying to do. I mean, the placebo effect is the most unstudied mechanism. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, everyone knows the placebo effect works and does stuff. Nobody particularly likes talking about it, because everyone wants to say their magic device, their magic pill, their this, their that does everything. Not really. I mean, it does in part, but really the body's healing system is what's going on. And if you can help optimize that, you can steer it in the right direction. You're well on the way. I'm not a great fan of magic bullets. What are they called? Magic pills. So I mean, this is sort of another analogy, if you like, of a similar type of thing. Like if we compare compare the body to a computer. Does that work? Yeah, cool. The human body basically has three components. It's got its software, which is the information that controls the body, like that. That's like its operating system. It's got its energy supply, and this energy supply you can split into four sort of parts. There's food and diet, which everyone's going to be very, very familiar about. There's electromagnetism, i.e., we were just talking about light, and that's one of the major sources of energy, but specifically infrared. You've got magnetism, Earth's magnetism. You've got gravity, and gravity's it's an interesting source of energy, and not one any of us particularly think about, but it's there. It's an absolute force that acts on us every day. But because you can't do much about it, particularly we're all roughly exposed to the same amount of gravity on Earth. We don't worry about it that much. And oxygenation, and of course water. And when you're looking at the fundamentals of life, like if you stripped out any one of those, if you stripped out light, if you stripped out food, if you stripped out magnetism, oxygen, water, not going to live very long. But what's really interesting, I think, when we're trying to look at healing and health, is we do get pretty obsessed on the whole food thing, and we often ignore all these other aspects. And often I think it's always good to look at all of the sources of energy in the body. Again, also the information. So if you do that, if you've been doing all these diet and food things for years and years and years, and that's not getting anywhere, maybe you should look at the other 4/5 of the energy equation. So we'll talk more about that in a second. And then the other part of the body is the hardware, like you're able to see. We do have a physical body that the information and energy runs through, which is cool. Next slide. So when we're sort of in a way we sort of talked about it, but how we see it is when you're looking at how to correct health. It's a little. Does anyone know what a fractal is? Cool. So it's a little bit fractal. Like there's certain things that if you make a small change in some areas, you can have a really large impact. One of the most significant impacts of things you can do is correct the information that's controlling all of that energy, that's controlling all the body systems, and that has a much greater impact than all of these other things. Second down the chain is energy, like correcting your nutrition, having really clean, healthy water, making sure you're getting doing exercise, get plenty of oxygen, exposing yourself to light and magnetism. And I guess, and if you're not, if one of those is sort of fundamentally flawed, then that's a strong place to look. And then underneath, we've basically got the idea of biohacking your physiology, but really every biohack is affecting the information and one of those sources of energy in some particular way. Obviously, some biohacks are more good at doing that than others. They all do something. So supplements as a biohack, juicing is a biohack. Doing like cold thermogenesis is one. Yoga affects gravity in a way, like ozone, high fat oxygen, light magnetism, etc., etc. All those are examples of biohacks that can affect your energy and information. But let's get back to energy, because it's a bit more interesting. So this is a lovely slide, and Sarah's lucky enough to go and meet the person who she's going to go and film the person who took this slide in 2 weeks time actually. But in New Scientist, was it a year ago? I think it was about New Scientist about a year ago. There's this amazing article where some scientists down at UCLA had basically discovered these bacteria that were living off pure electrons, i.e. they weren't eating food, they weren't breathing. They're just living in pure electrons. And for me, did I fall off my chair? I fell off my chair. I mean, yeah, and it's sort of what we intuitively think at what what we intuitively believe, that we're that life does basically, or can live off pure electrons, and there's at the sort of the most basic level of organisms on our planet, you actually have bacteria that don't require food and don't breathe. And it wasn't just one sort of bacteria. They started discovering them in the ocean. They're everywhere in the earth around us. I mean, I think they discovered like 60 odd different types, and it goes on. Like once they found one type, they knew what they were looking for, and it goes on. And the reason that's a bit interesting is when we're looking at our own body. I think but what Bern was mentioning about the mitochondria. I mean, the mitochondria originally they originated from bacteria, and they are this incredibly rich store of electrons. And when you're looking, and traditionally we always think of diet and the whole carbohydrate to ATP route as being the source of our food. But ultimately, that whole pathway actually just works through electron donation. But not only that, the real question is, well, I mean, this is a funny little point, but yeah, I mean, when you're looking at sugar, that's one of the richest sort of sources of carbohydrate, and the people who eat the most amount of sugar end up with the least amount of energy. And I think it was Gilbert Ling who, in the I don't know, 60s or 70s, but he did a load of research and identified that the mitochondria only produced the whole ATP route it only produced about 20 or 25% of the energy of the cell, and there was this whole other missing 75% that couldn't be explained, where your body got energy from, and it wasn't from food. And I think it did originally make a medical textbook, but it soon got written out in the next version, because that didn't sort of go in with the whole biochemistry approach, and that wasn't cool, so it got taken out. And there's loads of examples like that. I mean, just birds. When we're looking at how birds flock and fly right across the oceans. There's also been some studies where people weigh the birds before they fly, and when they fly thousands of miles, and they flap their wings so much and all that type of stuff, and then they get to the other side and they haven't eaten, but if you do the calculations of where that energy must have come from, they've got another source of energy that obviously hasn't been from their food for them to survive. And there's all sorts of other examples, or you can get into the breatharian examples of people living on light and not eating. And I'm not saying that because that's a bit extreme, but the sources of energy in our body aren't just from food, and you can train those mechanisms, which is sort of really interesting. But yeah, you can train these different systems in the body to not rely so much on food, so that you're able to get more energy from elsewhere. And obviously, the more energy you get from elsewhere, the better. So how on earth does that mechanism work? This is quite interesting. Cool. So there's a professor. Yes, he's called Professor Gerald Pollack from Washington University. He's basically done a huge amount of research into water and how the body is able to act as a battery. And the mitochondria is basically full of water, and it also has a fat membrane around the outside. And fats are quite important to it because they help to act as a capacitor, which stores the electrons from the water next to it. but you're probably thinking, how on earth does that work? So what Professor Pollock discovered was that there was a fourth phase of water beyond liquid, ice, and vapor, and he calls that fourth phase water, or he sometimes calls it EZ water, or as an EZ layer. And basically, water, when it's next to a hydrophilic surface, which means a water-loving surface, it has this incredible hexagonal structure, and that hexagonal structure has all of these curious properties. But one of the properties helps to explain all the questions earlier about infrared light is infrared light, and it's particular when you're looking at light. I mean, it's particularly at, like, I think it's 270 nanometers, which is in the infrared range. It's able to convert that energy particularly well. It basically converts photons into electrons. Those electrons end up being stored and collected and then transmitted for later energy use by the mitochondria. Yeah, I mean, here's a picture of it actually. I'll get back to work. Yeah, I mean that's a picture of his what he calls his EZ layer. So it has. I mean, what you're seeing there is basically water with a whole load of solute in it, which just mean other particles of dirt, etc. He's shined a whole load of light. Basically, he's just shined a load of light into the second slide there. And as you put more energy in, it builds up this EZ layer, and because it gets into a very tight hexagonal grid, it pushes out all the solutes. So inside your cells, in that fourth phase that's next to all the cell membranes, you get this extraordinarily clean, pure water, and it pushes out all the debris away from it. And then it has all of these, just absolutely incredible, just incredible properties. I mean, some of it, it's actually able to transmute all sorts of different types of energy in different ways, and there's a fairly incredible example. When you look at your capillaries, a red blood cell is too large to even fit down the capillary, and it sort of squashes down, and it somehow gets through. No one really knows how. No one did till sort of Pollock looked at it. Because the heart, I'm sure lots of you have heard about how the heart isn't just a pump, but when you do the maths on the heart as being a pump, it isn't able to pump all of the blood through all of these tiny capillaries. You've got really, really tiny capillaries down in our legs, etc. We've only got a small little heart there, and it can't physically do it. And blood somehow is able to propel itself, and it's able to do that because it's really a light EZ layer engine. So I mean, light is going into your body, and it's helping to move the blood around everywhere, and it helps to move all these really big red blood cells through all these tiny capillaries. Cool. Let's see if that goes. Oh no, that's not good. All right. Now this is everyone know Emoto in Japan. So I mean, this is just it was an interesting little experiment that we did a number of years ago. But when we were first making what we called infoceuticals, which are basically we encoded information into water, we sent off to Emoto's lab some samples, and somewhere we'd imprinted information into water, somewhere we hadn't. In this particular case, we were basically imprinting something called source driver, which was designed to do exactly what we were just talking about, of how to convert infrared energy into energy in the mitochondria. Rather incredibly, the crystal came back in this hexagonal structure, which is exactly the same structure as you get in full phase water. We didn't actually know what that meant till only a few months ago actually, when we just went and interviewed Pollock for one of our new films, and yeah, it was only last year we were reading his book, but that was quite a nice example where it shows how information can be stored into water, which also comes out of, I don't know if many are familiar with the work of Benavista and Luc Montagnier. Benavista was a scientist in the 70s that basically showed how information could be imprinted into water, and i.e. how water could have a memory. He successfully proved it. Nature wouldn't publish it, and Nature said, well, I will only publish it if you show another 3 labs. He got another 3 labs around the world to replicate that experiment, resubmitted it to Nature. Nature were like, well, sorry, we still don't believe you, but I tell you what, we'll come to your lab and watch you do it. And they went to his lab and they brought a magician, a magician's defrauder who was basically famous for defrauding magic tricks. And I mean, it's incredible, really. And he did it, and they repeated it again. But because they couldn't understand it, well, they just didn't want this article to be in Nature. They then went and published. I think they published this paper. I think they put this paper in, but then they put this huge side note with it, or a huge editorial with it, saying that it was a trick because they couldn't, because the magician defrauder said it was a trick that he couldn't work out. So Benavista was destroyed really in the whole science world, and that completely sort of killed off huge amounts of research into how water has a memory. And, it just put off any scientist sort of looking into it, because no one wanted to, killed off by Nature and other peer-reviewed places. Luc Montagnier sort of had another go, like about 2 years ago, was it? And he also showed again how he did that with DNA, didn't he? I think he replicated the information in a gene, recorded that in water, and then I think Sarah probably said it better, but then I think he got anyway, he basically managed to record some genetic information into water. It made a bit of a splash in, I guess, alternative circles, but again, he didn't get any funding or anything. And luckily, what's good is Jerry Pollock in Washington is also taking it up to really sort of get to grips with the how the memory in water is working, which is I think it's a very, very important topic. I couldn't really talk enough about, because what's fascinating, when we're looking at our bodies, 99% of our molecules are water. We don't particularly understand how information transfer works in biology, or we might think it's all the nervous system and weird hormones and doing all this type of stuff, but there's a million reasons why that doesn't quite add up. But yeah, when you're looking at the body as a sort of as a water semiconductor, a lot of things start to make a bit more sense. But yeah, what we've got here is back to the story of the body field, because we went off topic a little bit. So the body field, when you're looking at the overall body field, one of the key questions is how on earth does the body generate energy? At its most basic level, every single organ is able to attract, tune, and amplify energy. Every single organ is full of mitochondria. Each mitochondria is basically it's attracting source energy. It's attracting infrared energy that's being converted into electrons. That's all of that energy is being stored. And you end up with a cavity within a cavity. So a mitochondria sits inside a cell. A cell sits inside, for example, the heart chamber, which has 4 chambers, which sits inside a chest cavity. So it's a little bit like a guitar, or a guitar within a guitar within a guitar, and you get all these incredible harmonics of the different energy systems being sort of collected in each and every organ. Like every single organ, if you like, is like an energy cavity system, and all of these organs overall generate our overall body field. And what was really interesting when I mean this is Peter who's doing this research, because we started making what we called energetic drivers, which were basically information sets that help each organ to sort of basically to get healthy again. And we noticed within that sequence. We noticed that there was a sequence within how these drivers were developed, and that sequence that we ended up using in our health system matched exactly the development cycle that happens in the womb. It happened by accident, because we worked out all of these energetic drivers first, and I think it was at least 6 years later that someone came to us and said it was that matches the fetal development, which was quite interesting. But all of these overall organ systems, they're basically responsible for sort of every type of energetic activity that you have, from physical to cellular to chemical, thermal, magnetic, electrical, sound, and also light. And all of those fields overall combine to what we call the human body field. Cool. So I guess the next sort of question is how on earth can we change our body's control system? And this really is part of the story of epigenetics. And when we're looking, we're all very familiar with that whole sort of old-fashioned gene story that if you have an inherited disease, then that's going to manifest as some health problem later on. And it wasn't until about 10 or so years ago the field of epigenetics grew, which really said, no, it isn't actually the gene that controls your outcome. It's really the environmental signal that can change your genetic expression, and so which is huge. And so when you look, so the next question that comes out of that is, well, what on earth controls that epigenetic expression, or more importantly to us, how can we influence it to help our own health? And this really, you have a number of ways. There's light, there's magnetism, there's water memory, which we were just talking about. There's your thoughts and everything you think and do and experience. There's non-native EMF, which is a negative thing that we want to avoid. Toxins and nutritions, viruses, etc., good or bad lifestyle. And for all those mechanisms, we're basically affecting that epigenetic expression. So we can change, we can change what gets repaired, whether something is repaired, whether something grows, and it's extraordinarily significant. But I missed out one amazing word out there, which is information itself. So you can actually directly put information in, and then you can affect all of these things in a positive way. And you can basically do that. And it doesn't matter where. So a lot of energy medicine devices that you would have heard of, are electrical or magnetism based or light. That's Mickey Mouse stuff, to be honest. I mean, what matters is putting the information in onto that signal. So if you put an information on how a liver can work when it's working properly, how a kidney can work, how a nervous system, etc., it completely changes the outcome. I mean, there's the energy side of the equation, and it's great to give us more energy in these areas, especially if you're lacking it. But I think, as someone said, you can go outside for that as well. I mean, I think that's one of the healthiest ways to go outside, or go and swim in the sea, get grounded, and all of that. But instead, if you put information in onto these signals, and it has a completely different outcome. So this is one way you can do it. And I've got one in my pocket. Well, there's pictures on the slide, but you can give information through infoceuticals, and this is, well, it's that same idea of memory in water. It's really a modern take on homeopathy, whereas in the past in homeopathy you would basically take a dilute substance of like a mineral or a herb or something that would create a reaction. But instead of doing that, why not just give the information for how something is when it works perfectly? So you just say, we want your brain to look like this. So what Peter did is he basically mapped out the blueprint of how different parts of the body function when they're functioning perfectly, and then we just provide that information instead of doing that sort of indirect methodology through homeopathy, where it's a bit so-so. It worked quite well 200 years ago, but now we've got so many X 100,000 different toxins in our environment and all the non-native EMF, etc. So our environments are much more complex. It's not, the homeopathy is not as effective, I think, as it used to be. But even so, you don't need to get the body to react against something. You can actually just say, well, why not be like this? Why not be like this? And it goes back to that idea of looking at the body as its own self-healing mechanism. If you just provide the body with the instruction of how it can be, it'll do its thing. It'll basically start to heal itself. It's not magic. The body is basically magic, and you're just helping the body do that. These are just other sources. I think we talked about that a bit. We'll just look at what charges the body. Cool. So this is sort of the second part of the equation of how do we optimize the energy in the body. Grounding is a great way. My personal favourite is swimming in the sea. If you can't swim in the sea, fill up your bath with Epsom salts or crystal salts, or sea salt, because that's already grounded for all the copper pipes down into the earth anyway, and it's an extraordinarily strong grounding medium, and in fact you can get these whole great big, I don't know what they're called, life pods, or these sort of seawater pods, and doing that type of thing. Failing that, go barefoot. I don't know, barefoot's you get a bit dirty feet, but that's okay. I think grounding's a great way of getting free electrons. I think he's a bit spaced out. We're sort of. The question is, do we photosynthesize? What's the difference? I guess. Why do we even eat food? I'll put it another way. What's the difference between a mammal and a plant? Mammals, we've ended up disconnecting ourselves from the earth. Like, we don't have roots going down into the earth, and so we've ended up developing this other system for fuel, which is food, and plants generally don't need food. Plants are amazing. They just live off air. It's like air and light, pretty much. It's air and light and a few minerals and electrons. And that's it. But we do too. We do too, as we've sort of shown in that mechanism of water, how water's able to convert infrared light, and you can read in Pollock's book called The Fourth Phase of Water, sort of more how photosynthesis works, and again it works through water. We also recharge from Earth's magnetism, and if we disconnect ourselves from that, if we're up in high-rise buildings and we're never walking on the Earth, we're never really exposed to Earth's magnetic field, or in northern Alaska, or some areas where the magnetic field is a bit weaker, it affects us, and there's been I think there's been a number of experiments where they've put mice in Faraday cages and sort of disconnected them from Earth's magnetism. They don't do very well. They've done the opposite, where they've used where they've increased the magnetic field, and they've they've lengthened the mice's life by like, I think up to like 50%, and so there's this very strong correlation between increasing magnetism and increasing lifespan, at least with mice. I haven't done the experiments long enough for humans. And there's, coming out of that, this one. And another way of doing it is you can use pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. There's been lots of research here. This first started with sort of fractures, with demonstrating how PMF fields could be used to heal fractures. With net, I think it dropped on the floor. This is a mini PMF device. We basically put information in onto that signal, and then we pulse an electromagnetic field as well. So it can do a few things, but it can basically stimulate a particular region of the body that might be blocked in some way. But more interestingly is we also put the information in on the signal. So we might put information to help the bone heal. We might put it to make the muscles heal, to calm down the nervous system. We've got a few hundred different types of function in there that do different things. Another great source of energy or just free electrons is fresh air up in the mountains. So that's all good. And then I guess the last part is looking at how you can hack your physiology. And it's quite it's a very interesting area with very strong opinions about diet and all those types of things. And I've tried a lot of these different things. And I'm at the moment quite keen on this idea of really just increasing your metabolic flexibility. So I think I say almost anything, but pretty much anything you do to your body, or any type of, whenever you're trying to hack or do a biohack to your physiology, it's really a training effect. And with training, like if you keep doing the same thing, once that particular reaction's happened, you don't necessarily get a lot more effect from keep doing it. So if you're going with that whole the whole ketosis thing, and you just keep doing it, it doesn't work so well 6 months down the line. It's not necessarily great for you then. Same with interval training or something. If you just keep doing the same thing, it's not particularly effective. But the best overall way of thinking about it is not to think in these like, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. It's to think, well, I'm just gonna change it up, which probably we all do. But really the better way of looking at how to hack your physiology is how on earth can we have a much broader sphere, or a huge amount of flexibility in what we can do. So you might want to expose yourself to a lot of cold. That's great. Expose yourself to heat. That's great. In the diet world, I think that the diet world's so interesting, because you've got all the vegetarian, vegan, and juicing world, and you can see people who really flourish in that, and you can see people who don't do well in that, and you can see the same thing in the ketosis and paleo and the fat world too. And when you're looking at a mitochondria, or what our bodies are made of, cell membrane is mostly DHA and fat, and we know some of the mechanisms of how that can store electrons and energy. But at the same time, water's incredibly important, and the best source of really good structured water is well as juicing and vegetarian diets and raw and all that type of stuff. And you sometimes think, well, if you marry the two worlds together, it might be in a better place. But I personally, I think it's always good just you can use particular diets and things for a particular reason, or there can be a time where one's more appropriate and a time where one isn't. And if you're feeling a bit sludgy, you're going to be better off in that detoxing type regime. I don't know if you're overweight and want to try the ketosis thing and correct a whole sugar thing, then do it, but don't do it long term. Go back to a more balanced approach. And oxygenation is another. Interval training is an incredible way to increase oxygenation in a much more gentle way. I think I've seen in the past people were doing 45-minute or hour-long runs and that type of stuff, and that sort of stresses out your hormones, etc. But just doing short, sharp shocks is a lot more beneficial, because you can get the training effect. You can increase your lung capacity, increase your oxygenation, but you're giving your body the time to rest and make that adaptation. Obviously, there's also all the hyperbaric oxygen and ozone, etc. But again, if you did hyperbarics every day, and I don't know, if you had one at home, I bought one actually, and I sent it back. So I think they're completely toxic, to be honest. They're full of like VOCs and all the rest of it. But if you do something all the time and you're reliant on all of that extra oxygen, and you take yourself away from all of that extra oxygen, you don't have as many red blood cells, and you're not able to cope as well in normal life. So that's not a great adaptation. So everything has a place, but doing something all the time forever, I think, is often not a great thing. It's just way better to swap it out all the time. And you keep giving your body different training effects. So you end up with a broader capacity to handle more challenges in life, I'd say. So this is a very nice pink lady. So overall, so our main message from this is, if you correct the inflammation of the body and you give it the optimal energy, you end up supercharged. And the reason we say supercharged is because it's the next movie we're making, or that Sarah and I are making, is called Supercharged. It's on superchargedmovie.com, and I think if you go there, you can view our previous film, The Living Matrix, if you put your email address in and all that type of stuff. But the overall thing to get supercharged, correct the information, and optimize your energy. Always say it in 3 ways. If you change the information that directs the energy in your body, you can directly affect the energy in your body through water, light, magnetism, gravity, and then also you can hack your physiology to basically affect the first two. And that's it. I didn't say our main health company is on nesshealth.com.
So, is this on? So, any questions for Harry? No questions. Okay.
So how did this help you?
I didn't say that, did I? No.
What did you do to fix your fibromyalgia?
Sure. I can show you. Do you want a demo?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quick. We'll give you a demo. Do you want to help Sarah? Right. Basically, we had this. So we created this overall health analysis system called Provision. Yeah. Goodness. Do you mind being scanned?
Yeah, you asked the question, didn't you? I think Harry's going to scan you with his technology. So if you can't...
I'll show you, it's easy to show.
Painless. Painless is good, yeah.
Hopefully it's good.
We're not on the screen at the moment,
Am I not on the screen? Oh.
We have Yosemite.
We have this
Yeah.
Goodness me, how do we do it? It might, I might just tell you.
Okay.
I might just, and then can you see that? Is that viewable?
Yes.
Right, we'll do it this way. Okay.
You have to like merely just a minute.
All right. Yeah, you do that. I'll talk. But yeah,
You're
but
the talker.
I'm the talker. So yeah, I mean, basically, we ended up making that health analysis system, which we called provision, and you end up, well, we basically just put your hand on here, and then that basically scans the body to see what's going on in the body, so we can like look at all those different, like when we were talking about the energetic drivers, so we can look at your heart, liver, kidney, etc. We can read your thoughts, but we won't show them. It's luckily no one will read the screen. And then okay, then basically we can see what's going on. So back 12 years ago, we didn't have this 12 years ago, but Peter did it in this sort of with an old-fashioned Vega machine, and then we basically computerized it today. And then from that, we made all these different information sets to correct different parts of the body, which are, we got an nutraceutical around. I know there's one in my bag.
So you weren't able to cure your fibromyalgia until recently?
No, this is 12 years ago.
Oh, 12 years ago. Oh.
But basically I met Peter, and we did that initial experiment with the black and white squares, and then after that he basically started making me these nutraceuticals. And I think the first one I had was it was an antidote to a group of claviviruses. And I basically ended up getting this very strong immune reaction for about 3 days, which basically helped to correct that family of bugs. And it didn't cure me or anything. And then I think the next one we made was a remedy called ESR, which stands for emotional stress release. And that ended up calming me down a bit, because I was very, very wired and tired at the time. And I was still tired, but I wasn't wired. But that basically helped give me more rest. And then
Kind of steps. You did
it was over about like an 18-month period, and we made all these different, we made 72 different sets of nutraceuticals of these, and basically the scan works out which ones you want, which ones you need, and then we give all these different information sets. Cool, alright.
So it's on the screen now, Harry.
Oh, is it? Amazing. Alright, so we'll put your hand on there, and then we're just going to hit start here. It's a new graphic. This is a new beta bit of software that we haven't released.
It knows I'm a girl too.
You're the first person to ever be scanned by this piece of software. Cool, there we go. So up there we can see all the different organ systems. And I can take it off now. And what we can see here is basically
I'll just sit down then.
if you want to sit down. Well, unless you might want to tell us if this means,
Oh, okay.
because you know your body better. When we're looking at your overall body, basically what's coming up is something called the heart imprinter, which shows us how well you're imprinting information into your blood through your heart.
Okay.
Your muscle driver is coming up, so your muscles might be a bit weak. Your liver is coming up, circulation's coming up, a little bit kidney, a little bit lungs, a little bit heart, a little bit nerve.
So the yellow ones are sort of non-sequiturs, and the colored ones are, or is it the size of the circle?
So the ones that fall, so the purples are the worst.
Oh, okay.
And then the oranges, and then after that the yellows.
Oh, okay.
And then these are a bit like the Chinese meridian system.
Okay.
And in this case, again, actually it's your heart-lung meridian, and then also your mucous membranes, and your small intestine meridian that comes up. And if we look at bugs, it's flashing a bit. That's still there, amazing. Yeah, there's like a stomach bug that comes up. You've got the same bug I had, which is the chronic fatigue. Well, that's the flabby bug, so there's a bit of that going on. And there's another bug that affects your nervous system. Well, it's an autism. It stuff shows you've had the autism vaccine, and that's affecting you a bit.
I had an autism vaccine?
Well, sorry, it's the MMR vaccine.
Really?
Yeah.
What if you get exposed to the lumps and you just
It could
Well,
be.
I
I mean,
did
what,
have lumps as a child, but no.
yeah, it's still affecting you a little bit.
Oh, darn.
But yeah, I mean, you can basically take you can take an infoceutical that'll correct that. That's how that works. Then we have I mean, in this screen here, this screen basically shows places where we would use the My Health. So
Okay.
but
It's liver.
maybe Philomena can do it at the same time I'm talking.
do a computer?
Yeah, let's do that. So Philomena, Philomena loves on My Health. So yeah, we've got ER25 that's coming up. Yeah, so what this is doing is it's basically showing where there's particular energy blockages in different parts of the body. And then we just set, so here it says ER25, which basically has information to help the stomach. It's got also the stomach meridian and bone meridian in it, and she's basically placing it over that particular area on that setting. So at the moment it's putting in a pulsed electromagnetic field at a particular frequency set that helps that particular part of the body, and then we put the information in onto a signal on top. So there's quite a lot to it, but I might say something about all the frequency stuff. So I heard someone asking about how you know what frequencies are right for which parts of the body. It's a whole other slight subsection of science, but so out of Russia, there's an incredible scientist called Professor Muller, who came up with this theory called global scaling, and he'd basically taken on the work of, I get his name right, Leonid Euler. Yeah, sorry, Leonid Euler was the Leonid Euler was a Russian scientist in the 17th, 18th century who was behind calculus, wasn't he? Yeah, but it was more fundamental than that. Anyway, I won't worry about that bit because it's a horrendous bit of detail. But anyway, he came up with something called the Cantor fractal back in the 18th century. Professor Muller took this research on in Russia, and he got what are they called? The Russian. Anyway, he got the equivalent of the Nobel Science Prize in Russia for this work. And basically, what he found is this Cantor fractal was reflected in pretty much every part of reality you could think of. But more interestingly, it's reflected in in the body. And another scientist called Dr. Rainer Weinhager, because told us about this, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years ago, but we didn't understand it because it was half in Russian, half in German. So we asked him to write a book on it in English, which he did, so me and Peter could understand it. And long story short, basically Rainer, using this mathematics, they could basically tell which sets of frequencies would have a healthy node, or how would I put it? Which frequencies would have a healthy oscillation that's supported by nature or supported by this Cantor fractal or not. And then we looked at those sets of frequencies, and using similar technology to how we made this system, we basically matched these frequency sets against different parts of the body to see where there was a match or where there wasn't a match. And then each of those sets of frequencies, we basically programmed in there for the different functions of the body, and then we added in the sets of information in onto the top. So yeah, I mean that's it's a frequency device, but also an information device.
Question right here.
Sure.
So you partly just answered it. Two things. One, is it just literally you put your hand on, and does it just read energy levels in your skin, in your hand, when you put your hand on the device, and then from there it just knows from a program to go at a certain frequency in order to heal it, or?
It's the falling off your chair answer. So you know in the beginning when we were talking about the black and white square experiments, it basically uses that. So every single piece of information in the body can be converted into numbers, and so we basically have a number for how a liver is working well, and a kidney, etc. And then we take that number and we basically then run a random event against that number, and we don't run it once, we run it 28 times, and then we measure the amount of deviation away from normal against that particular set. So it's not an electrical system at all. It literally, we call it space resonance matching. You could call it information transfer at a distance, or as Einstein would say, like you get spooky action at a distance. But or you could call it like there's the field of radionics. You could call it out of radionics, or the pendulum stuff. I mean, there's many different ways of explaining it, but I don't know if that makes sense.
I don't have all the background that makes sense.
I mean, the book called The Field by Lynn McTaggart, that's really key to understanding it. And another book's called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, or our own book. I don't know why I don't mention my own book. So it's all described in that book called Decoding the Human Body Field. I'm giving you the long way around. Yeah, there's the book.
So, but from a therapy perspective, are you saying that you just use your tool, or are you recommending this as a sort of an area to look at hot spots in your body, so to speak, that then you can work with your practitioner, whoever that might be, to sort of focus on those areas? Like what do you, at the end of the day, do on a holistic perspective?
So I mean, we basically we only work through practitioners. So generally a member of the public goes and sees a practitioner. They scan them, and then they recommend the right infoceuticals. They do the My Health treatments. However, come from the 16th of May, I had an original dream of creating a home wellness system. But from the 16th of May, you will be able to do it from home as well, but via a practitioner. So there's basically you can have a My Health at home. Yeah, and basically the scan will work through the internet. Basically your practitioner shares your results through the internet, and then so you don't have to visit a practitioner. Which is why I started it, and it took about 12 years to put all that together. But that's how it goes.
What would it be like? I mean, they get the information. So how long would a treatment take? How long would you expect somebody to, depending on what the condition is, get a solution? What would be different scenarios? And cost related, since
Cost related. I mean, each infoceutical costs $25. They generally have 4 of them. Mina may answer better because she's one of our practitioners. But it really depends what's going on with the person. I mean, you can't really give an answer. I mean, in my case, I was bedridden for 8 or so years. It took about 18 months for me to get significantly better. We do get you get stories of people just having like one My Health session, and something goes away and they get better. Most people it's a few months, and very dependent on what's going on and what else they're doing and all those types of things. But I mean, yeah, I mean, but generally, you would know in 1-2 sessions whether something's going on, and you know, if you notice changes, you're going to carry on. If you don't notice changes, well, yeah, better off doing something else. But generally, I don't know. You got an answer?
And what's involved in practitioner training? What's the time for that? I'm just curious about
that. There's sort of 2 parts to it. There's an online program. I think we generally recommend it's about 6 months. However, you can do it. How many pages of it? It's like 3-4 pages or something. I mean, it depends. If you've got.
Yeah. So it's quite a comprehensive training program. Initially, it's a 4-day where you do in class, and then there's a comprehensive program that's online, and you do it in your own time. But yeah, as Harry says, it probably take about 6 months because there's case histories and things. But you can be practicing on friends and family in between. So, and it's very much.
It depends if you're in practice or not. I mean, if you're not really busy, then you can race through it.
Yeah.
But most people who come in and are running practices, so they're doing it the weekends or in evenings. So for them, it takes 6 months. But it just it depends a bit on the circumstances.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Sorry, pardon me, that's all night. I'm sorry. So how does this completely replace more traditional blood tests and other panels that you run, or are you looking to sort of say no, or is it complementary in order to find out what's going on? Because it looks like from here, what you've just done, it's like, well, it's great. You just put your hand and bam, it comes up with all your problems, and you do the, I'm not trying to, I'm just a little skeptical, but I still think it's a really great thing,
Does it replace? It's totally different to it's totally different to blood tests. We're looking at the body. Well, we're looking at the body from internal fields. So we're looking at how well the liver is generating energy, or how the heart is, etc. It's not the same as doing a particular liver blood test or any of those types of things. And it would be. It's not something I would say that you should be replacing every blood test. And it all depends how you're working. Obviously with our lovely regulatory environment. For us, we're basically saying it's a wellness system, and the body's healing itself, and this is giving an indication of the energy systems in the body, and it's a way that you can help to stimulate the body's own healing response to get people better. We're not claiming to be a medical system doing medical diagnosis and all that lovely stuff. So, my political correct response answer is no, we're not replacing it. You can view that how you want. Obviously we do have practitioners who only do this and don't do. With that, I'm saying, I'm sure like 70-80% of our practitioners are not doing blood tests as well, because that's not what they do. They use this, but I can't say don't go and do that.
That was basically my next question is, do you have any kickback from the AMA or from medical doctors saying you're practicing medicine without a license? Just wondering if they...
If we made those sorts of claims, then we would, but so far not. We just survived a 4-day FDA inspection, which was a bit hellish, but we came out all right. So from their point of view, with what we're saying on our websites, and they flew over to Britain and inspected our UK office and went through all of our paperwork and computers and everything. And anyway, after 4 days, we came out and we didn't have to make any changes. So from that angle, it's fine. Obviously, I'm assuming. How I've spoken tonight, if there was an FDA guy in the room, I probably would have spoken a little bit differently. But But it's, you know, it's not so risky. The biggest risk in this land is your website. You know, as your website and your printed brochures, you know, what you say is a little bit different. Unless there's someone in the room, then be careful.
Your live stream.
Yes, what?
Your live stream.
I will.
Okay, let's thank Harry for his talk.